Hi friends, Brad Morrow here with the Empowerment Podcast. Brr, it is cold out here today. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever struggled with stress or anxiety or worry? Worry is kind of like that chilling breeze that, just like today, blows right through our bones, making our life miserable. Wouldn't it be nice if there was some way we could just snap our fingers and that stress would just disappear and we could be transported into a place of blue skies and peace? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you stop worrying? How do you beat the cruel taskmaster of anxiety and worry? Well, there's ways to do it. So let's go inside and talk about it. Hey friends, recently I had a great opportunity to take a class that's a Dale Carnegie class. And as part of that class, I got to read one of his great classics, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. It's full of great insights. I highly, highly recommend that book if you deal with worry or anxiety at all. Now, in that book, he recommends 30 different ways to stop worrying. And then at the end, there's all kinds of testimonials from people who had genuine worry in their life and were able to overcome those worries. Now, to whet your appetite about that book, I'm going to share a couple of ideas from the book, and then I'm going to share several other thoughts from other people who struggled with worry or who had concepts about worry. So let's jump in. Dale Carnegie shares a great quote from a French philosopher named Michel de Montaigne. He said, my life has been full of terrible misfortune, most of which has never happened. It all happened in his head, but never came about in reality. Oh my goodness, isn't that the way worry is? Let me share with you the true story of Corrie ten Boom. Now, if anybody had a right to worry, it was Corrie ten Boom. She lived in the Netherlands during the Nazi occupation, and she was part of a Christian family who made it their mission to help Jewish people and Jewish families escape and be set free from the Nazis. Now, what they would do, they had built a hidden wall that made a room where people could hide. And they had an alert system, so if somebody was about to inspect their house, they could alert the people that were hiding there, and they could go into the hiding place. Well, this worked great. They helped almost 800 people escape. But then they were found out, and they were arrested, put in concentration camps where her father and sister were put to death. Now, she was about to be put to death, but by a miracle, through a clerical error, somehow she was released from her concentration camp. And a week later, every woman in that concentration camp was exterminated, put to death, assassinated in the gas chambers. So if anybody has a right to worry, Corrie ten Boom has a right to worry. But here is what she said about worry. Worrying is carrying tomorrow's load with today's strength, carrying 2 days at once. It is moving into tomorrow ahead of time. Worrying doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. Worry doesn't empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. So what does that teach us about worry? Well, we can't change the past. So why worry about the past? Now, we can learn from the past, but we can't change the past. We can't predict the future. Now, we can plan for the future. We can do some risk mitigation for the future, but we can't predict the future. So why worry about the future? The only time we can live is right now. Here's what Dale Carnegie says about this topic in How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. You and I are standing this very second at the meeting place of two eternities. The vast past that has endured forever, and the future that is plunging on to the last syllable of recorded time. We can't possibly live in either of those eternities. No, not even for one split second. But by trying to do so, we can wreck both our bodies and our minds. So let's be content to live in the only time we can possibly live, from now until bedtime. Let me share a little bit of my story. I am a Master Black Belt in Lean Six Sigma. That's an improvement methodology. One time I was working for a company in their information technology department, their IT department. And At one point, this company decided we're going to outsource all of our IT department to another company and lay off everybody in the IT department. Well, that was me. I got laid off. I didn't have a job. Oh my gosh, what was I going to do? No job. Job prospects were thin. Well, what happened? Well, after a time, I worked hard at looking for a job. I finally found a job, and it was pretty good. And then that led to another job where I got to teach people a class called Change Champions. And it was the joy of my career. I got to teach people every day, all day, how to be empowered agents of positive change, how to view themselves with that feeling that, yeah, they have the power to make a difference in this world. Well, I got to thinking, if I hadn't been laid off from that company, that terrible thing, getting laid off, I would have never experienced the joy of my career teaching Change Champions. And that gave me a whole new perspective. How much worry did I waste in that situation where I was laid off when it actually led to something much better? So I realize now what I really need to do is flip the script. It's so easy to catastrophize. Oh my gosh, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? Well, instead of talking about what's the worst that can happen or daydreaming about what's the bad thing that's going to happen, let's flip that script and talk about what's the best that can happen. Let's visualize the best. Let's visualize our hopes when we're tempted to worry about those bad things that might happen, which 9 times out of 10, they never do happen. And even if they do, oftentimes it works out better than it did before. So let's think about, for real, what's the best that can happen? Check out these quotes about worry. Just when the caterpillar thought the world was ending, he turned into a butterfly. You don't drown by falling into the water. You only drown if you stay there. Anxiety's like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you very far. Never fear shadows. They simply mean there's a light shining somewhere nearby. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Religious leaders and philosophers throughout the ages have known all about this concept of worry and only focusing on today. Jesus, in one of his most famous sermons of all time, the Sermon on the Mount, he says this: "Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" Well, of course, that question is rhetorical. There is no way you could add a single hour to your life by worrying. But we can bring much joy back into our lives if we can stop worrying. So in closing, remember, you can't change the past. You can't predict the future. But you can have joy today. Don't let worry and anxiety steal your joy. Embrace the truth and live in joy. Have a great day.